Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Om. Om Shanti 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 Om Namaste. We are back with Gita, chapter 12. So we we just to create a context here, we are saying that Lord Krishna has subdivided the three fundamental sadhanas presented by Vedanta, which is karma, upasana, and jnana yoga, subdivided, producing five different sadhanas. And well, the first one is karma yoga level 1, and then level 2, and then upasana level 1 and level 2. And then in yoga, there is only one level. You either understand it or you don't. And so we have seen it last week, or this week, I think on Monday, no? So you can be a Sakama, Kama Yoga, Niskama, and then you can be a meditator on Ishvara, Saguna with one single name, form, and attribute, one of these deities. Or you can take Ishvara to meditate upon as the entire cosmos, a manifestation of the cosmos, or furthermore, with never apart from the intelligence sustaining the cosmos itself, the laws and principles. And then we go into Jnana Yoga, which is our favorite yoga, but only after we have gone through the previous stages, which are absolutely necessary. Compulsory, sometimes Swamiji puts it. So we have seen these concepts over and over. In the beginning, it's recommended that the sadhaka begins, even if it is materialistic yet by nature, and even if it is selfish by nature. But the important thing is to begin this approach, this relationship with the Creator, invoking the Creator, during your day-to-day activities, remembering, and then somehow developing what Swamiji here clearly states as devotion, which is not a particular sadhana, but it is a name given to all sadhanas, because in order for a sadhana to be said to be called a spiritual religious sadhana, it must be must produce devotion, reverence, love, gratitude, seeing everything as an opportunity to grow. So again, upasana, devotion is not really a passive by itself, but the spirit of love, appreciation, gratitude, and reverence to the Creator. Okay, the first one is busy, just fulfilling one's personal desires. The other is busy, serving society. Both are busy. And then the second one is a better business, doing something which is not only self-centered, but fundamentally, later on, one has to move into upasana. Again, I used to have an attitude against upasana because, as you know, I got so frustrated with deep meditation that I threw the baby with the water all out of the window. So upasana is said to be very important. It's the same thing. When I was living in India, I think I may have or may not have shared this story with you. One Sunday, I went to visit Papaji. Papaji used to like my son big time. And then he was just playing around with my son. And then he turns to me and says, what school he's studying. I say he's not studying in any school, Papaji. He does private class on maths and English. And then Papa G said, no, 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 you have to put him on a proper school, and I want you to pick up, go back to Brazil, and bring him to formal education and stay there to look after him because Brazil is a dangerous place. He knew everything, you know. He had a caregiver who was a Brazilian from São Paulo who took him to Brazil a few times in the early days. So he knew some about Brazil, and he told me to go back. And then I tell him, "What are you talking about? You know, I'm here because of you in your presence, satsang, spiritual growth." And I say, "No, no, you understood it. You read long enough. Go home, and your sadhana is gonna be look after your son." So why I'm saying that? Let's see if I'm going to remember why I'm saying that. So I'm saying that because I was so devastated that he'd send me home, and I would say, it's not possible. Why I should bring him back to find a formal education if I myself got formal education and I gave it all up? In my view, I did not need to give him formal education. I just need to give him a spiritual environment and basis on maths, English, or whatsoever later on. He was still very young, maybe 8, 9, 10. So, and then it took a while for me to understand that you cannot deprive someone of something only because you gave it up. Because I gave it up after having had something that later on I did not find enough value from my standpoint. But if somebody did not get something, why to, prevent the person from first getting? And this goes for the entire approach here. Never suppress one's desires for things of the world, and not even from the spiritual, esoteric, mystic samsara. Do not suppress, go knock yourself out until you develop some maturity. So that is why I remember this story. So my son had to go back, get an education, and go through his samsara experience, hoping that he's gonna come out on the other side, not completely worn out, having wasted, so to speak, another birth. Okay. The goal is to come to Atma Brahma Vichara or Atma self-inquiry, the inquiry in the nature. And that is after you have gone through Upasana. Upasana again, you have two levels, as we know, and the mind becomes more subtle and then can go and hold itself, developing one pointedness, focus, and expansion, since your object of holding, focusing, is more and more subtle. So that prepares the mind for the subtleties we find in the Yana Yoga, and the focus, the necessary focus to hold the mind all through those logics that have somehow a threat. I forgot this name, this one. So that's the purpose of Upasana that I was trying to say. Oh, you don't need Upasana. This is stupidity on my side. I was giving bad advice to people around me. Okay, the initial meditation purpose, we go through Ekarupa and then Anekarupa, and then we are not going to get into that, but since Krishna ji has already subdivided in 5 sadhanas, the 5 sadhanas is simply beyond Vishwarupa Ishwara, but is Arupa, no? Arupa, Ekarupa, Anekarupa, Arupa. So just Ishwara is just no attributes, therefore there is nothing you can say about that except that it is your very intrinsic nature, existence. That's very subtle. Most people miss out on that. Most people believe that Vedantins, they are just the ultimate deluded people to believe on something that cannot be accessed by the sense organs and the mind. And they don't understand, that it's impossible not to believe, not to trust, not to agree with your own conscious existence, which is not the mind, but the light of consciousness revealing the mind and everything else. So we come to Vedanta, Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, as we know. And not only one has to start, the culmination of this start should be the meditation upon Nirguna Ishvara. So Nirguna Ishvara is Ishvara without any gunas, any attributes derived from the gunas. So you cannot really hold on to anything about Nirguna Brahman, because it has nothing on which you can, hold on to. There's nothing. There's no qualities, no property, no attributes, no characteristics. It's just conscious existence shining in our very intellect. So how are you going to meditate on that? Since it's not an object of knowledge, since it's not an object of experience, it cannot be meditated upon directly. You cannot meditate upon Nirguna Brahman. And then what is the deal about Yin Yoga and thinking that Nididhyasana is the Vedantic meditation in which we meditate upon Nirguna Ishvara. So you cannot meditate. Ishvara is not an object of meditation. And then how we go about with this Nididhyasana? Who can answer this?
Well, my understanding is that it's what is called sitting with your true nature as awareness, or taking that stand instead of being in the mind and in the world. But while you're in the mind, while the mind is operating and you're in the world, just being, reminding yourself.
Yeah, very good. You're going to say something, Mark?
Self-recognition and abiding in that your true nature, and you can arrive there through negation of the five koshas, and the outside world, of course.
Yeah, both answers are good, but I want to present a third answer as well. Since Ishvara Brahman is not an object of knowledge, it's not an object of experience, and it's not an object, of course, of meditation, because you cannot meditate upon something which is not characterized by the gunas, which is nirguna, and then you have to meditate upon what? The scriptures on self-knowledge that reveals the true nature of the Nididhyasaka as limitless consciousness. The Vedantic meditation is never on Nirguneshwara, but on the scriptures. And it's what both of you said, So Lin said that more from the angle of the experience of experiencing, that kind of reflect consciousness, that then you remember this is my true nature, original consciousness, and that I'm experiencing this sense of peace and presence. And the other way, what Mark has said, which is looking at the scriptures indirectly, rejecting anything with attributes. I'm not this, I'm not this, I'm not that, fundamentally. So your answer, Mark, is more on the lines of meditating upon the scriptures on self-revelation, self-inquiry, self-recognition, Atma Vichara. And once we understand the Ishvara is free from attributes, and then the Nididhyasana is only complete when we really do the Vedantic meditation and realize that Nirguna Brahman is my own very true intrinsic nature, okay? And that is when we just wrap everything up with what we call direct self-knowledge. It's not that the self is an experience, the self is my very, very self, and I have the self reproduced as human consciousness, and the human consciousness meditate upon its true nature, real nature, has an experience of shanti, peace, satisfaction, and ananta, it's a reflection that occurs in the mind of the Nididhyasaka because we tap into our true nature, which is limitless, and then somehow that fragrance comes in the mind of the Nididhyasaka in deep meditation, in deep Nididhyasana. We must study the scriptures, we must contemplate on the scriptures until I realize Nirguna Ishvara is no different from my own self. So Aham Brahmasmi Tattvamasi. When I come to this Nirguna level, the difference between the Atma of the Jiva and the Atma of Ishvara, the Atma of Brahman must disappear. At Saguna level, there is only differences. And don't try to believe that you can live in this world pretending that there are no differences. A lot of people in the spiritual circles all over the place, make that confusion, that, oh no, we all one, come here, let's have a big hug, So it's not about that. Namarupas, they construct incredibly based on this law of differentiation, distinction, plurality, diversity. There are no two flocks of snow, as they say, which are identical. So on the level of Saguna, everything is different, okay? Accept that. But Saguna is just a superimposition of Prakriti and its gunas, creating these numberless configurations. But when I come to Nirguna, and only when I come to the understanding of the Nirguna Brahman as my true nature, that I understand what non-duality really means. What non-duality means. It's not a oneness made of infinite parts, but it's oneness because all there is consciousness, and all diversity, plurality is a superimposition of the Prakriti of Maya upon consciousness. Having gained this knowledge, I go to Manana to remove all doubts in accepting this knowledge. This is very nice. The first thing is to get the knowledge which is free from doubts, free from suspiciousness, from vagueness, abstractions, wishful thinking. I wish this is correct, but I'm not fully convinced, okay? So you have to really remove all doubts, as Swami says here. Doubts which are preventing you embracing this knowledge fully so that you have a doubtless self-knowledge. So all the intellectual obstacles in the form of doubts must be resolved. That's called manana, which is also part of Jnana Yoga. And finally, we come to Nididhyasana. And Nididhyasana is after we have removed doubts and suspiciousness and vagueness and so on. We're going to deal with what? This is so beautiful. Removal of the emotional obstacles now. You understand? Why? Because now I have the knowledge is clear and so on, but when I interact with the world of object in duality, diversities, plurality, I have emotional response or reactions which contradicts my knowledge that there is only consciousness and I am of the nature of freedom and limitlessness. So, and then Nididhyasana is just remembering this last piece of the process, which is nothing can touch me, nothing can really affect me, and therefore I can keep my pose, my equilibrium, my balance, my equanimity in respect to everything that hits me in the day-to-day experience of life, because the knowledge is firm, the knowledge is alive and available to us. As Swamiji very honestly he puts, even the Yanni may have moments that he has some human reactions. This is natural, it's part of our human nature, but the Yanni, as we know, recovers very quickly, and those contractions, so to speak, they are less frequent and more superficial. So these emotional obstacles, they may come from traumas from childhood. So I love when Swamiji goes a little bit deep into the psychology. It's a lot of things from the childhood that are there that have crystallized, and then that ego, that infantile ego responds yet to the environment, to the one's prarabdha, say like, no, it's my way. I want this, I want that, but I got that little thing that, is always giving a little bit of tantrum when things are not going one's way. So this comes from emotional obstacles, traumas, various problems have gone through in our lives. We all remain in the inner heart. They all remain in the inner soul. It's in the subconscious mind, he means to say. All these traumas, they are there in the subconscious mind, and they are preventing you to enjoy the benefit of self-knowledge. Is so transparently put, preventing us to enjoy the freedom, the benefits of self-knowledge, because I have it on the intellectual level, but I need to work on the emotional level. And then what do we need? We need nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is going to bring about the purification. Okay, and there are people, as we know, that say, who cares about doing nididhyasana and purify? I have the knowledge already. But if the knowledge is not allowing you to really enjoy the benefits, of self-knowledge, the benefit of self-knowledge is peace and lack of emotional violent response. So if that is not being there, it means that one can do some work on improving. The knowledge is there, okay? But how are you going to do that? Staying associated with the scriptures, sharing the scriptures, studying the scriptures, and reading the scriptures. So remembering the scriptures until this knowledge is not only present on the intellect, but is neutralizing those old emotional traumas, emotional reactions that come as we interact with life. Shravana plus manana plus nididhyasana is called Jnana Yoga. So it's not enough just listening to the teachings, reflecting a little bit. You have to reflect and contemplate all through until all doubts are resolved. And then you're going to go into the Nididhyasana. Nididhyasana is all stages are important. Karma Yoga, Upasana Yoga, Karma, Dharma, Upasana. Shravana is important. Everyone is indispensable. But the work is complete when you do your homework. And the homework in Nididhyasana, very few people want to do. I see my Portuguese group here. People, they don't have time. They don't have time because it's not up there in their priority. You understand? Some people enjoy the heat, enjoy the high of doing those 4 hours of satsangs in the weekend, but that's all they can commit to. They don't commit to do work at home because they're too busy or too distracted and so on. And most people do not even appear every weekend to the class. So Nididhyasana is the key. And no guru can do Nididhyasana to the devotee or disciple. It has to go through Shravana, Manana. Once we come to Jnana Yoga plus Nididhyasana. And this Jnana Yoga This manana nididhyasana is not upon saguna ishwara, but it's upon nirguna ishwara. Hmm? And that's it. Anything to say about that? This is a nice passage.
There's so much discipline involved, it seems to me, which is why the sadhana chatushtaya is so important. That getting oneself to live a disciplined life, because the nididhyasana of focusing, always remembering, bringing back, staying at home, just do over and over moment. It's the world is so seductive to continue to be a sangha.
Yeah.
Is it's a real focus.
Yeah, it's a challenge. But I want to add something. You were going to say something else, Mark?
Not particularly. I was just listening to what Lynn said, and yeah, it is challenging, of course. But yeah, we have to hold this knowledge all
Yeah,
the time.
I am not complaining, because
No.
every moment one is standing as one's true nature, then that shanti is there, and it's wonderful. It's just, you know, when you get away from it, it's missed. It's missed.
Yeah.
Anything?
I'm finding also, sorry,
No,
I'm
no.
finding also that I get this moment of hesitation now. If I'm going to commit an act, and it gives me the opportunity to recall the scriptures in my mind and then act from that viewpoint. So this is happening more and more in my life. I see, okay, you do have the choice of how you respond to the
Right.
situation. And then once you've got that choice, you can then make an informed, educated response.
Definitely. Well said. And I only want to add something very small, but very, very important to be understood. This discipline, as Lynn has said, is very much necessary, especially at the beginning. We need to be disciplined. Discipline, of course, before discipline, we have to have a good viveka. We have to have developed a certain understanding of the facts behind any object of gain of this world. And then we begin developing this passion as well. And then we see the world is pulling us here, and this process is pulling us here. And we are a little bit distracted because we are still divided. And then there is spirituality is going to be the Upanishadic inquiry, or there are a lot of other more infantile, more preliminary levels, such as esoteric, mystical things. And the individual is going to be a little bit confused, okay? But once we get enough of this preliminary, like a good viveka and some dispassion, some understanding of the limitations of every object of gain, including certain experience, and then the individual start having what? A more and more committed desire to do the work. Okay, so the commitment comes with maturity. This commitment is in technical terms referred to as mumukshutva. So once we have a strong value and a strong desire to do this work, and then disciplina is going to be less and less required. Disciplina serves for that I can grow my commitment, I can grow my mumukshutva. Fundamentally, the ultimate qualification is mumukshutva. And I have mentioned that several times in my exposition for the past 10 plus years by now, because at my time I had a strong mumukshutva, but I did not have much of other qualifications developed. The main was this strong desire to self-knowledge, to have self-recognition. So once you have that, and then somehow there is a grace that comes from Ishwara and say, so now I have to bless this person because the person is really, totally committed. And especially if you start just throwing those prayers to the Lord, as I used to do. So, no form, no color, no smell, no taste, no touch. This Jnana Yoga is the fifth and final level of sadhana. And 5 levels were presented. Swami says 5 levels put together is called Bhakti Yoga. I don't like this equation of his. I say that through all these 5 levels, you must have devotion if you want to succeed in your endeavor. Devotion has to come through all these. It's not a sum total of the 4 sadhanas, but it's something that has to be present from the get-go. Therefore, never ask the question if I should follow Bhakti Yoga or Jnana Yoga. Remember, Jnana Yoga is also, to do Jnana Yoga, you also require Bhakti Yoga, devotion. To do Karma Yoga, you require to be a devotee as well. That's why it says devotee, devotee. You have to be a devotee of the Lord. You have to be devotion to the Lord through all stages in your process of spiritual development. Okay? So everything needs to be permeated by Bhakti Yoga. Everyone has to go through the 5 levels. And Swamiji says this is a very good thing. This is a very good thing. I remember when I first read it, I loved it. Nobody is born with a desire to love God or to know God. It's something that needs to be developed. Some people may come with such a strong devotional vasana that find themselves in an environment where father, mother, and everybody around you is a devotee. That was the case with Papaji. He was born in a family that there were devotees of Krishna, but heavy duty devotees, very, very intense devotees. So why? And then he has devotion because of his parents. No, he has parents that are devotees because of his devotional vasanas. So the question never has to be asked, Jnana Yoga is better than devotional yoga or bhakti yoga. Okay, we understood that. Everyone has to go through different stages in one's pursuit of spiritual elevation. Let's put it that way. Nobody's born. Yeah, nobody's born. So we are all born with many world desires. So generally speaking, I'm opening an exception because some people, they are born already with a very, very strong spiritual desire. And I can tell you on my own experience, I was very confused when I was a very young man, 21, 22, coming out of college. And even before going into college, I was confused. I did not know what I want to do from my life. We are all born with many worldly desires. So I can talk to myself. I was confused. I was not convinced. I was not convinced about these worldly goals very much, so much so that I walked away from everything for the despair of my parents. So, but most people are born with many worldly desires, and therefore don't suppress it. Just go through it, but include God in your life's equation. Never say you should work for moksha in the beginning itself unless you're an exception to the rule. He says, Vedanta says, the scripture says, you work for putra, you work for what is putra, please? Security?
No, this is about getting a son and doing the yagya that,
Okay. Understood. Work for whatsoever you want to gain in this world. Money, security, wealth, fame, world desires. Don't suppress. Start where you are and gain the knowledge. Before you gain the knowledge, Aham Brahmasmi, you have to go through all these world desires until you get the knowledge that no worthy commitment is going to deliver what I'm looking for. This is maturity. You need to get that to come to that conclusion. But as long as you still invest a little bit, subconsciously say, no, yeah, but here and there, if I succeed in these 3 levels, I'm going to be as good as if I get self-knowledge. And then your energy is scattered, you know? So you have to get to understand nothing is going to solve my problem, which is a good place to be, but a little bit rare to find in people's mind. Therefore, start where you are, sakama karma, and so on. And then later on, you gain the knowledge that nothing in this world is going to fulfill me, make me satisfied and peaceful. This is the gain, the first, most fundamental gain before you can work for the knowledge Aham Brahmasmi, which is the culmination of one's spiritual process according to our Upanishadic scriptures, Vedantic scriptures, which is a culmination of one's process of sadhanas, of spiritual effort that have been always followed with the fragrance of bhakti yoga, of devotion. In the last 8 verse, Krishna talks about the nature of a person, the character of a person, have gone through 5 stages. Who is in Advaita, who is a Jnani, who has discovered Aham Brahmasmi, and such Jnani is called Bhakta, or Krishna clearly says, is my dearest devotee. So, but this is it's a little bit funny, those sentence, because a Bhakta is a devotee. Okay? Then you say, Krishna clearly says that this intense parabhakta, this intense devotee alone is my dearest devotee. So, a bhakta is a devotee. Okay? So he says a devotee that has grown in devotion, appreciation, and so on, understanding of the nature of the Lord, is coming close to understand that the Lord is one's very true, intrinsic, real nature. No? So this is the level before one comes to become a Jnani. Is the highest devotee, as we say, the highest bhakta, and says, Krishna clearly says, the highest devotee is my dearest devotee, of course. So if you have some friends around you and some of them do not really like you and some loves you, so your dearest friend is going to be the one who loves you so that you appreciate their love, you love them in return. It's difficult to love people who do not appreciate us. No? So, and the other people are dear people and dear people, but the dearest devotee are the highest level devotee. The highest devotee is who understood that there is no distance or separation between my nature and the nature of Ishvara. Is the nirguna devotee, so to speak, nirguna bhakta, nirguna devotee, that one who loves and appreciates the Lord as one's very true real nature. There is no separation, and therefore it's the dearest. And Swami goes to the extent to say, when you love someone, he says, I'm not the right person to say that because I never had this experience, but I know that people, when they love each other, they like to keep their bodies attached to one another, because, and then we feel there is no distance, there is no separation, So Yani does not stand even separate from the Lord. So this is what called Parabhakta Lakshanani, the characteristic of a devotee who understood the true nature of Brahman. This is the final topic. And then with this background, we enter. Arjuna asked the Lord, who are the best yogis among all the yogis? The ever-steadfast devotees who meditate upon you as described before here in the previous verse, or those who meditate upon the imperishable, unmanifest Brahman. So he was describing clearly the nature of the Saguna Lord, Saguna Ishvara, and the importance through karma, dharma, upasana to develop a very, very mature and strong love and desire to further understand the nature of these Saguna gods, So who are the highest devotee, Those yogis who are meditating upon you in your nature as Saguna Ishvara, or those who meditate in the imperishable, unmanifest Brahman. So we have seen it here. Swami has presented the context that gives us the answer to that. The highest devotee, or the devotee considered the dearest to the Lord, is the one who has been meditating upon the imperishable, unmanifest Nirguna Brahman. So we know that. But let's say how Swamiji is going to present this question. A question is a question, does not bring an answer. The next verse should be the answer. I don't know how Swami deals with that, because here there is a question, there is no answer yet, and Lord Krishna is going to answer. This chapter 12 begins with the verse number 1, with Arjuna's question. It's based on the 11th chapter and what we have covered there. Such a question is called an independent question based on the previous teaching. It has some Sanskrit technical term for that, prashnaha. Independent question based on the previous. It's not here. It's a little bit off what's being said here. We are talking about the 5 levels of sadhana and this and that. So now he is asking what is better, and this is again, he was asking this question at the beginning, chapter 2 or 3 maybe, asking what is superior, Kama Yoga or Jnana Yoga. So this is an independent question. Saguna Bhakti is superior or Nirguna Bhakti is superior? The one who is associated with Saguna Ishvara, and the one which associates or commit to understand one's true nature, own nature as Nirguna Ishvara. Between these two, which one is superior? So this is a very, very important question. As I said, it was presented not so well contextualized, but it was already presented in the initial stage, initial chapters. First, he describes Saguna Bhakta in the first line. There are certain Saguna Bhaktas who regularly meditate upon Saguna Ishvara. So who are the best yogis? The ever-steadfast devotees meditate on your Saguna nature as described before. So the very important question, and how do these people meditate? Upasana with constant commitment, sincere, steadfast. There are some people who meditate upon Saguna Ishvara. And what type of Saguna Ishvara? So one may be very, very committed even at the early stage, It may be just as a deity that one is so committed that spend hours and hours and hours meditating upon that sort of symbol of Nirguna Brahman, one deity. So, and how do they do? What kind of Saguna Ishvara? No? It may be a Karupa or it may be a Nekarupa. So, the 11th chapter, Ishvara was talked about in its Saguna nature, the Lord as the entire cosmos, Vishvarupa Ishvara. It was described. Purusha is talking about Vishvarupa only, therefore, the one means Ekadasa, This is one group of people. The people meditate upon the Vishvarupa Ishvara, but before that, we should have people meditating on deities, okay? Anekarupa and Ekarupa. Ekarupa, deities, and Ekarupa, Ishvara as the entire manifestation. Then Arjuna introduced, now he's comparing the two levels of Saguna Upasana to Nirguna Nididhyasana. He's saying, who are the highest? Arjuna introduced the Nirguna Bhaktas in this line out of the blue. And what do they do? You have to supply for the first line. The verb is not given. The words are not there. We have to supply the context. If you remember the eighth chapter, Aksharam Brahma, Paraman. Param Brahman is called Akshara Ishvara, and Param Brahma is free from attributes, and so on. Akshara means Nirguna Brahman. Okay, thank you for introducing another term for the same principle. And because this Akshara Ishvara is Nirguna Brahman, is attributeless. Ishvara is not perceptible, it's not perishable, it cannot be accessed by any sense organ, it's not an object of knowledge, experience. It does not have any attributes of the five senses, sound, vision, and taste, touch, and so on. And music, not there. There is nothing you can access this Nirguna Brahman. Okay, in short, it's a Brahman, it's a Ishvara, it's Nirguna, which is not an object of meditation, as I was putting it before. Any one of these sense organs are going to be able to conceptualize this Nirguna Ishvara, because we do meditations creating symbols or objects of upasana which are conceptual. When we say let's meditate upon Ishvara as the entire cosmos, how are you going to focus on the entire cosmos? You're going to focus on the concept around the entire cosmos, which expands the mind. How are you going to meditate upon Ishvara as the intelligence sustaining the cosmos? You hold that concept. So we are talking about concepts, but Nirguna Brahman cannot be held by any concept. Okay? That's why it's very important. You have to hold on to the scriptures, the Saguna Vedantic scriptures that are going to reveal the Nirguna nature of the Nididhyasaka. Why I said Saguna is Saguna scripture, because it says it's not any object of knowledge because it does not have attributes, okay? But it can never point to Nirguna Brahman saying this is Nirguna Brahman, but in the end it's going to point to Nirguna Brahman and say, hey, you fool, you are Nirguna Brahman. No? So, but the whole process is Saguna. Is by, trying to say, you cannot do this, anything you do, it's not it, net, but anything is Saguna, anything is superimposition of the gunas, and so on. So it's not objectifiable through any sense organ, it's not objectified by the mind, even a concept of Nirguna Brahman is impossible. The only way you can understand Nirguna Brahman as your very conscious existence. And you need these scriptures that are going to reveal it. And the revelation should be direct. And this revelation is what we call self-recognition, self-knowledge, and so on. So this Nirguna Brahman is what these people meditate upon. Nirguna Brahman is not an object of meditation, as I have been adding up. How can I meditate upon? There is only one way to meditate upon something that has no attribute. You can meditate only in one thing. You meditate. There is only one way to meditate upon this Brahman that is not existing as an object. Is meditate about Brahman as the real subject, principle, my very nature. I have to remember the mind, the body-mind sense complex is an object within the scope of this true subject principle, which is consciousness. You're going to meditate upon as my true nature. My true nature is not the mind, it's not the intellect. My true nature is consciousness. I have to meditate upon Brahman. At this level, the meditation, the nididhyasana upon Nirguna Brahman has to introspect, to meditate upon my own self, because I can only meditate upon my own self, which is the only self, which is the self of Brahman, Atma de Brahman, Atma Ishvara, Atma de Jiva. So I can only access it, this self-knowledge, by recognize that within myself. If I recognize within the nature of the creator, or the nature of Jagata, or even theoretically the nature of Nirguna Brahman as a concept, but if I don't recognize as my own intrinsic nature, this knowledge is not liberating knowledge, is not a parokshayana, is indirect knowledge, is academic knowledge, is theoretical knowledge. So one must meditate upon Nirguna Brahman as the subject principle behind the mind of the meditator. Arjuna's question is, which one is superior? Now Krishna is going to answer. Yes, exactly. Now Krishna is going to answer. I mean, we kind of guess what Krishna is going to say, but you can never know, because sometimes Krishna plays with us, And here, if I remember well, he may say that the superior one is the meditators upon Saguna Ishvara. Why? Because it is what Arjuna needs to hear. And it is what most people need to hear. You understand? Otherwise, they stay there on the philosophy without gaining self-knowledge. Lord Krishna said, fixing the mind upon me with great faith. Those ever-steadfast devotees who meditate upon me are considered to be the Gashik Yogis by me. Fix the mind with great faith, those steadfast. He's referring to the previous verse, the first line of the previous verse, who meditate, they are considered the best yogis. So he's not stating clearly that is the Saguna Bhaktas, but it implies that is the Saguna Bhaktas, the best yogis. So what is the answer? It seems a bit confused. Is Saguna Bhakti superior or Nirguna Bhakti superior? He seems not to have answered, but I believe he did. Generally, our tendency would be to vote to Saguna Bhakti, because in Saguna Bhakti alone there is variety, there is big, all these are there. Who will like Nirguna Ishvara? Nobody likes it. It's so rare. It's so rare. And no flavor, no music, no smell, no touch. Many philosophers say Nirguna Ishvara does not exist. Even big minds, philosophers say that we are just tripping, And this is a kind of doubt that remains in the mind of a lot of Vedantins, Does really exist this self-recognition that liberates us, and there's such a thing as freedom from suffering through understanding one's true nature as Nirguna Brahman, but this, how can you? So the philosophers, they may even come to a philosophical conclusion that there is no such a thing as Nirguna God. They say that outright that they negate, and even among those who accept it, they say many people is not worth knowing or teaching. It's useless. What he's saying here, and the philosophers say that even among people who does not reject the statement that there is such a thing as Nirguna Brahman, even those who accept here it says that it's not worth knowing or teaching because it's useless. There is nothing there, there is no attributes. So how are you going to get any benefit to understand something that has no properties? Okay? You cannot say that this is good. It's beyond good and bad. Oh, no, but I want something that's really good. And then go for Saguneshwara. Okay? Oh, I want something that is really true source of knowledge, omniscience. Okay, go to Saguneshwara. But why? Because Nirguneshwara is beyond knowledge and ignorance. It's the very conscious existence behind the cosmos. So people do not understand how such knowledge, how the assimilation of such a knowledge can transform one person. Because how can something without any quality have value? How can something without any quality has value? We are always looking for quality, good qualities rather than bad qualities, good attributes rather than bad attributes. How can something without any attributes be the most valuable thing in life? To be known, not as an object, but as the subject. So, of course, in the mind of these people, no wonder people turn around and they start looking for a sort of search for mental states or interdimensional experience, because there you have gunas playing and there are some dualities playing, and you want to find yourself in one loka in which you experience some good spiritual punya or whatever. But the thing is that all these realms, even though in the nowadays internet, with all people with their opinions about the superior dimensions in which you can live there forever, interact and doing and that. No, our scriptures state, and I trust this scripture not because I'm a fanatic, because it makes more sense than anything else. It says that here you have a body, and through body, with your physical instruments and the instruments of reception, you can interact with the field, with the Dhamma field, and produce punya papa. When you are up there in one of these punya lokas and papa lokas, you don't have your yana, your karma yandras, your instruments of action. It's through thoughts, deliberated thoughts, processing thoughts, and you process thoughts as you interact with a field, through your receptions, five senses, and then your five organs of action. And that's the way you're going to produce punya papa. What is the big deal about people want to go to one of these other dimensions in which you only exhaust some punya papa, and then you have to come back to learn certain lessons that may or may not, conduce you to self-knowledge and the transcendence of desire for punya lokas and papa and avoid papa lokas. So the solution for samsara is not transferring this samsara that we know we experience to suppose samsara, which is mental emotion. The subtle world is a mental emotional world. We experience this every night while we sleep. You know, we go into the dream. We go into different dimensions. People say, no, that is not. And I sometimes I have certain saying, I go in certain dimensions on which I have experienced. No, this is more than just a dream. No, I mean, we really go with our minds on these different realms, and then we have certain experience, you know. And people who have this ability, this gift or something to have their minds detaching from the body, they experience according to the nature, the quality of they experience these other mental dimensions, you know, while it still associates with the physical body. They say that there is a cord that remains attached, and then you go into this mental different dimensions, and then you come back. But when that cord is cut, and then you go there and you're going to stay where you belong. Where do you belong? It's according to the synchronicity of the energies, the vibration of my mind, the purity of my mind. I'm going to find better dreams or not as good dreams or even bad dreams, you know. And we experience every night. Sometimes when we drive, when you dream, you experience different things, celestial dreams and not so good and bad dreams, you know. It says much about the nature of our mind and this inner mental emotional dimension we tap into, you know, when we go into the dream state, which is a mental travel. So what is the answer to this question? The real answer is that the question is wrong. You see, you can never trust, you know, Swamiji when it comes to these things. And he's just following the commentaries of Shankaracharya. And then, of course, Krishna did not state very clearly here which is superior, okay? Because it depends on the stage of each one of us. Huh? So, and he does not want to tell everybody that Yin Yoga is the superior, Bhakta and this and that, and oh, it's for me. Then everybody's running there, and then everybody is going to drop off. Why? Because people are not qualified for that. Right? Therefore, in some passage, he says clearly that Saguna Bhakta is superior. In the second chapter or third chapter, he said it very clearly to Arjuna, contradicting himself a little bit. But here, Swami is presenting a nice argument, probably derived from the commentaries of Shankaracharya, say the real answer is that there is no superior inferior because the question is wrong, you know, is wrong. It's like to say, see, what you like better, this shirt or these pants? You cannot compare shirt with pants, you know. I bring a water, give me a water, a glass of water, and then you put, oh, just a moment, what do you want? You want the glass or you want the water? You know, so you cannot separate the water from the glass. The water's without the glass, I have to drink water like taking it coming from the rain. Yeah. So the question is wrong. Therefore, Krishna did not answer it. How many kilometers is the weight of this wallet? How many kilometers? It's a wrong question. No? Because centimeter, therefore, whenever you try to compare things to find what is superior and inferior, remember it must be from things of the same subdimension or, you know, same order, suborder. The very question of comparison comes only when you have to choose between two things of the same order. You ask the question whether this is better or that is better, so that you can choose which one of those two shirts are better, look better on me. And the choice can come, can vary carefully. And what is this? Is there something misspelling that? Maybe, huh? Okay. Okie dokie. So we meet on Monday, and then we schedule the rest of the week on Monday. Okay. Good to meet with you again. Sorry again for yesterday. Love you. We meet again, Ishwara willing. Bye bye. Namaste. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you, Lord. Om Ishwara. Namaste. See you soon again. See
Thank you.
you later, alligator.
Thanks, Arlindo.
Nobody gave me the crocodile thing, huh? Okay.
Crocodile.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Adios.